Daren, thank you very much for coming in and talking with us today. I've wanted to have something like this ever since the first Bitcoin meetup that I attended in Portland, and I saw there's somebody else in the state of Maine who is focused on this new, I think, groundbreaking, revolutionary technology that is Bitcoin. And as I've come to know you more, there's a lot more different businesses that you have your fingers into, and you've got some very, very interesting ideas, not only about how businesses should operate, but also about individual sovereignty that I think are worth exploring. But I think probably the first place to start is, as a real estate developer who's worked in Portland, I think you've seen the ups and downs of the regulatory environment there, both at the state and the municipal level. And I know when I talked with one of your employees at an event last year, I didn't know that you guys were relocating from Marginal Way, from your office that used to hold the Bitcoin meetings. I just randomly asked, when are you relocating from Marginal Way? And she said, oh, in like January or something. So I was like, well, a good guess on my part. Maybe I've just been to some of the homeless camps enough, so I understand why a business would want to relocate from there. So thank you for coming in today. And I guess that's where we can kick it off is, what's it been like to be a business owner in Portland, Maine?
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Steve. Yeah, I mean, Maine is not exactly the incubator hotbed for fintech businesses, to say the least.
Right.
I mean, I don't think there's a single person in the Maine legislature who even understands what a Bitcoin is, much less why digital finance and cryptocurrency and stable coins and things should be legislated into our future. So it has been difficult. I mean, I travel to all of the national conferences, and there's nobody from Maine ever there. Maybe there's one company actually from Maine who makes little Bitcoin wallet.
Yeah, they're from Dover Foxcroft.
Stamp seeds,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
So it's been difficult. There's no support or even cognizance of how important the issues are. But I didn't really do it from that perspective. I opened up what's now a closed company, which we can get into a post-mortem of. But Luxolo Financial, I opened in 2018 as an idea of mine to start a sovereign finance company, something like a bank branch where you could walk in and conduct finance, but it would be with alternative currencies, cryptocurrency, metals, and other things that are actually substance, which is a legal phrase that is differentiated from fiat currency. So that was the vision of Luxolo Financial.
So in 2018, before we saw the printing of $4 or $5 trillion, you were trying to give people access to a currency that can't be inflated by the whims of politicians.
You bet. And
so fairly forward-looking, I would say.
Yeah, And we made some pretty happy customers because, of course, the Bitcoin price back then was sub $5,000.
Yeah.
So, we got some very happy customers who were early adopters. But frankly, the wave, our best years in business was 2020, 2021 and 2022. That's when people came out of the, I don't know, can I say scamdemic, and realized something is very, very wrong here.
Yeah.
With the economy, with the government, with the financial system.
With the money.
With the money.
The money is
the money
broken.
was broken, and when you print, when the central bank prints 40% of all currency that's currently in circulation in a 3-year period of time, you get rampant hyperinflation, you get all kinds of social problems and
centillionaires or cantillionaires, You get people who are closest to the money printer get all the money.
Yeah, exactly. And whereas I'm a proponent of Main Street, not Wall Street, and the whole purpose of my firm was to enable the regular guy to build some wealth.
So I think there are plenty of other videos where people talk about Bitcoin and can explain to viewers who aren't familiar with it exactly what's involved there and with digital currency more broadly. But for the purposes of this, I would say Bitcoin is like you have electricity, the internet, and then Bitcoin. And maybe AI, general AI, if we get to that point. But that's the level of technology that we're talking about here, like a revolution in monetary technology. And it's decentralized, can't be controlled by a government. The amount of Bitcoin is finite, and it's more saleable over time and space than any other monetary good we have.
Yeah.
You cannot, you can move $10 billion worth of Bitcoin for a fee of less than $5, and you can move it to China and back within 20 minutes, and nobody can stop you. It's uncensorable. Whereas if you were trying to move $10 billion worth of gold, you're going to hire armed security, you're going to have to hire a boat or a plane, and you're going to need. There's a lot involved there. So there's no other monetary technology that compares to it. So it's I think pretty important to the future of humanity. The Trump administration has recognized this with the creation of the Bitcoin sovereign fund that the United States is going to have, and they're adding Bitcoin experts to their team. We have yet to see a lot of really interesting developments on the policy side, but we at least have somebody who's not hostile to Bitcoin and to digital currencies in the White House. So I think if people are interested in learning more about Bitcoin, there are other places where they could go to learn about it. But we'll just kind of proceed with a basic understanding of digital currencies as this new area of innovative financial technology that, at a minimum, you would want state and government and federal regulators to be open to and to be encouraging development. But here you are, you've started this business that has a bunch of happy customers. You've made them a significant amount of money by giving them access to a financial investment that they probably otherwise wouldn't have had access to, and yet you had to close. Even though your best years, you said, were in 2020, 2021, 2022.
Yeah.
And so you've got this, thriving, successful, forward-looking business in Portland, the gem city of the state of Maine, and no longer in business. So what happened?
Yeah, it's a great question. A lot of good years there right after the COVID thingy, and what happened really was banking, a boa constrictor, of banking problems. So we were a classic victim of what's called choke point 2.0, which is a banking phenomenon where the national banking regulators, they're not allowed to tell banks to avoid certain industries. It would be illegal for them to tell banks, avoid the firearms industry, avoid the pornography industry, avoid the cryptocurrency industry. They can't overtly say that, but what they do is a sneaky roundabout way. The Biden administration, and actually predating him, the Obama administration, found ways to essentially make banking services inaccessible due to risk profile levels of cryptocurrency firms. So we got debanked once in 2022. We found banking temporarily. We were debanked by a Maine-based bank. I won't say which one, but we had been with them since 2018. Their risk department called us up in all levels of concern as though we were cocaine dealers or something like this, and explained calmly that our accounts would be closed within 30 to 60 days and we should bank elsewhere. And so it was very disappointing to be debanked by a Maine bank in 2022.
And this is ongoing, by the way. The medicinal marijuana growers are finding themselves debanked. And I'll just say it, Camden National Bank is debanking marijuana growers.
That's the buzzword. That bank is. Yep. And then we found another bank based in Tennessee who was catering to the cryptocurrency industry, but they just buckled under immense pressure from the federal regulators, and they debanked us as well. So, and they stole our money too as well. So we had a residual balance of something like $70,000, froze it, and never gave it back to us. We tried to sue them. We weren't allowed to sue them because it turned out our contract was subject to an arbitration clause, which I've now become wise to. And we went to arbitration and we got pennies on the dollar. And so it was a very sad story, actually. So not so much a problem with the lack of comprehension from Maine legislature and regs, but certainly I would say intentionally overt choke point 2.0 success to the
just
Feds.
hostility from the federal government.
Yeah. Now that has turned, and so maybe we can move in a positive direction now. The new administration has gotten rid of Gary Gensler, and I forgot the head of the banking finance regulator, gotten rid of that person, and supposedly choke point 2.0 is on its way out. But as you said, there's a lot of residual effect. It's not over yet.
And also, I mean, it wasn't necessarily a clear-cut policy. It wasn't like the Congress passed some law or the former president issued an executive order. It was kind of an informal thing. After the first choke point operation was more deliberate and was targeting firearms and other industries like that. Now they're kind of doing it more subtly.
Yeah. And the SEC was part and parcel to this. So under Gary Gensler, any crypto activity, he just had this kind of blanket, approach of just calling it a crypto security and therefore when you attach the word security to anything, it's under the SEC's jurisdiction. And so it was a very, frankly, improper. In fact, he was reprimanded and told not to call them crypto securities anymore, because as we know now, it's been proven in court that Bitcoin specifically is not a security and never will be, nor will it ever be under the jurisdiction of the SEC. So the SEC was also weaponized against the industry. So remember when NFTs first came out, they harshly slapped down a couple of them in some scintillating cases. And made it clear that no one else should be trying to do this, even though it was not proven at all that these were securities. It was just they bite first and then let you try to fight back, and if you don't have the means, resources, energy, et cetera, to fight back, too bad, you're done. And so by the time you receive a Wells letter on your desk from the SEC, you're done.
And a Wells letter?
A Wells letter is an accusatory letter from the SEC that says, hey, we strongly believe you are operating as an unregistered securities dealer, and you better stop it immediately, or else we're coming down with the hammers of hell. And
so the Hawk Tuah girl might have gotten a Wells letter.
You know what? I think she did get in trouble with the SEC, come to think of it. Yeah.
Well, see, that's one of the issues is you have something like Bitcoin, which kind of had this immaculate conception and was truly decentralized, and everybody had the opportunity to get in on the IPO, such as it is for Bitcoin. But now later you have things that are being launched under less honest, transparent circumstances, like Hawk Tuah coin or Pot coin. I remember talking with somebody who was like a fan of Barstool, had told me about CBD coin and how they just created it from thin air and then paid some D-level influencers to post about it on Instagram. It just,
and even Trump coin, I was very disappointed.
Oh,
I mean, generally, I like the man, but that's just another meme coin, and it has no intrinsic value or use case, and it's. You know, when people have asked us since 2018, you know, what kind of crypto should I buy? I just say, get the granddaddy. Just get the Bitcoin. Don't worry about the 19,999 shit coins, if I could say that.
Yeah,
so,
of course. Yeah, we're not regulated by the FCC or the SEC or the.
Good. All right.
So with your business do you think you had death by 1,000 cuts, or were there some more significant things that you can point to? In addition to like the federal regulations, the choke point, the debanking, were there things that accrued, or was it more of a sudden?
Really, the only other major factor that I can point to was just the public image of Bitcoin was intentionally smeared, really, through all of these government efforts. And so the average person who cracks open the Wall Street Journal, MSNBC, all the mainstream national media would just see that Bitcoin's a scam, this person got scammed, this big company called Celsius went out of business, Three Arrows went out of business, all these BlockFi, FTX. Yeah. So the SEC intentionally let these bad actors go to very high heights before letting them, shooting them down in flames, so as to create a media spectacle.
You're saying that the federal government would create a crisis just to advance some kind of regulatory agenda?
I mean, what was the guy from FTX? I mean, it was every single buddy, including the regulators, knew from day one that he was improperly operating the company, and they just let him do it.
And he also donated to, I think, the majority of members of Congress.
Exactly.
Huge contributions to members of Congress. And I believe our Senator Susan Collins is the only one I know of who has confirmed or returned those donations or donated them somewhere. So I mean,
that's funny.
Who knows how you actually prove that the donations went out? But
so just to finish the thought, Steve. The second point was just the public image was smeared so much so that we just saw our demand levels drop off to almost zero. Like nobody wanted a Bitcoin because just look at the newspaper. It's bad stuff. You might as well. It's rat poison squared, to quote Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
So
the great Warren Buffett.
Oh yeah, well, the Oracle of Omaha.
But this is a story for another time. But destroyed my hometown.
Really?
Yeah, Dexter, Maine. Yeah, he to this day says that his worst investment ever was Dexter Shoes, and I think he bought it for $200 million in Berkshire Hathaway stock, which is now worth $4 billion or $5 billion, and Dexter Shoe is vacant. Totally vacant, destroyed the town. The biggest industry there is probably Chinese marijuana. But it's a story for another time.
I remember that. Yeah, the only one in Maine who made out well was the Alphonse family
exactly.
there.
And then the rest of Maine suffered because of what they did. The political project that they started. But so you shuttered the Bitcoin side of the business, but You also have this commercial real estate business that is laboring under the local municipal constraints of Portland, and have recently kind of made some decisions to minimize your exposure to Portland. At the same time that Portland is now doing rent control laws, they've had, I would say, some crime issues and some homelessness issues and some drug issues. The city, I think even liberal Democrats I've talked with who are fans of Portland are saying that Portland needs a turnaround. It's kind of scraping rock bottom. So talk to me a little bit about your thinking around minimizing your exposure to Portland.
Yeah, you bet. So I run Lux Residential. It's an apartment management firm, and we have a couple hundred units under management. We don't own them, we manage them for other people. And yeah, I had been in Portland, Steve's, doing commercial real estate since '06, and I absolutely loved it. It was awesome. It was a vibrant, exciting place. All the best deals were happening there. I was making money brokering transactions. And then, yeah, when 2020 happened, and we're down on Marginal Way, and we're hearing that the constable is going to come down and bang on our door and demand that we place asphyxiation devices over our faces. I said, whoa, this city has turned for the worse. And then the rent control was enacted. That backfired, and I think I went on record with you or another media source to say it literally backfired. So landlords who would not have otherwise wanted to raise the rent were forced into a corner because they felt like, geez, if I don't do it now, I may not get the chance to in the future because my ceiling's being limited on how much I can increase my rent. So literally, landlords, we're like, hey, just chill out. And they're like, nope, I'm going to take the full 10%. Or nope, I'm going to take the full, whatever the CPI was that year, 7.9%.
Yeah.
Put it on them, Daren. I need to. So we were forced to raise rents because our landlords, rightly so, felt cornered with scarcity of rent control. So at any rate,
just to be clear, the rent control comes down, approved by the voters of Portland, and all the landlords immediately jack up rent.
Exactly.
So it was like an immediate taste of
what
controlling prices accomplishes.
And kind of a piece of poetic justice was it was pegged to the Consumer Price Index out of Boston, and of course when the money printing occurred, as we just discussed, that spiked. I think it wasn't at 9% on one of those years, and so the plan didn't work for that reason as well.
So rent, because inflation is running faster than wage growth,
Absolutely.
So rents can run faster than wage growth.
Yeah, and when you take away. I don't believe that it passes muster with Maine constitutional law. Maine constitutional law mirrors U.S. constitutional law, which says that it's got the contract clause. No state shall impair the obligation of contracts. Well, isn't the state of Maine, or the, I guess, state is used loosely here, a corporate municipal entity, Portland, Maine, haven't they impaired the obligation of contracts between a tenant and a landlord? They certainly have. That's not permissible. And I think in New Hampshire and Tennessee, I think rent control was just completely overturned at the state district court level. It was proven to be against their state's constitutions.
Do you know if there's any legal challenges coming to the rent control law? Because I haven't seen or heard about anything.
Because no one has the courage to do it. And so unfortunately, even our industry's organization, the rental housing, we just changed our name. It used to be the Southern Maine Landlord Association, but now it's the RHA. Forgive me.
You gotta get rid of that lord, that landlord part. That's land person, land.
I know. But forgive me for not knowing the acronym there. But there's nobody there. There's really nobody in the whole commercial real estate community with the gumption to challenge this, which is sad. Mm-hmm. It's more like, let's just shoot at it with a BB gun and try to water down some of the aspects of it, which is foolish. You got to go right for the jugular because this whole thing is completely illegitimate. You can't tell a landlord. That's like walking up to an attorney and say, you can't charge $400 an hour. This law right here says you can only charge $200 an hour. It's absurd. I mean,
and if the client isn't happy with your services, we've created this tribunal of lawyers, and they can go to, and they have the authority to punish you. Exactly. I mean, that's effectively what the city of Portland does. Is they stacked this panel with left-wing activists who get to wag their fingers at
That's right.
landlords.
Yeah, 7 kind of left-wing people. I think one of them was more moderate, but yeah, exactly. They're the ones who are the
moderate in the Portland sense.
relatively speaking.
What does that even
exactly.
mean?
And they are the arbiters of what is permissible
To do with your property.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, so at the same time all of this is happening, your property taxes are going sky high, and you're on Marginal Way, next to Trader Joe's, and that's where the Bay, what was it, the Bayview Trail, the first homeless camp was.
Yeah.
So you
Virtually.
you could almost see the homeless camp
Yeah.
from your parking lot. So you're getting, cracked down on for not wearing the COVID masks. You see the rent control coming in, your property taxes are going up, the amount of services that you're benefiting from the city are going down. Interest in people just coming and walking around the city or exploring the city is going down. So the cost of living and having your business in the city is going up. At the same time, the benefits are going down.
You bet. Yeah, and our rent was going up as well. We were at the end of our 3-year lease, and the landlord's like, the base rent's going up, and by the way, the additional rent's going up because our property taxes are going up. It's just, I mean, what rational business person would literally continue to steep themselves in boiling water? I mean, it's obvious the direction that things are going. Mark Dion, the mayor, is doing his best, but he's vastly outnumbered by a very, very liberal council. There's no intention of curtailing.
I wouldn't even say liberal. I would say out socialist.
Yeah.
Like, you're dealing with far left socialists. I mean, the city is worse than it's ever been, and they're focused on resolutions about like Israel and Palestine.
Exactly.
And whatever you think about that issue, like the Portland City Council, you got to stop people from pooping on the street and open gun violence and open drug warfare, drug dealing happening. Like, you got some bigger problems.
Yeah,
the schools are in the gutter. Like, you got some bigger problems.
Yeah. Like you said, though, we're debating Palestine-Israel conflicts, and also how many needles, hypodermic needles, to give out to each person. Is it 200?
Exactly.
Is it 300? Yeah.
And rehoming the domesticated rats that live in what used to be homeless camps. Literally, that was an issue. Someone went to the city council and spoke about how some of the rats left behind at the homeless camp show signs of being domesticated and deserve homes. So like as soon as you can take care of some of those issues, then maybe we can focus on the geopolitics in the Middle East. But until then, I think you probably should stay focused on what you're actually elected to do.
It's just very bizarre. It makes no rational sense. But yeah, for those reasons and more, we left Portland and relocated our headquarters to Westbrook, Maine, a much more rational and business-friendly town. They are very, very pro-business, and we love it there so far. In fact, our lead client, who builds apartment buildings, I won't say any names, has signed up to build 3 apartment buildings in downtown Westbrook. There's all sorts of city incentives. There's some federal incentives in place, and we're just doing market rate housing, and we're crushing it. We actually just filled a brand new 65-unit apartment building in Westbrook, and the move-ins start next week. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So you've got these delays of 6 months to 18 months. We could do away with those. I guess the response from the government officials will be, well, we just need to hire more employees to go expedite these permits. That's what we need. We need higher taxes and more government employees, and that'll fix the problem. But there's got to be other log jams than just permitting approval delays from DEP or the Army Corps of Engineers or the City of Portland.
Right. You bet. I think the core problem, I think those are small Band-Aid fixes, but the core problem is really the money system is broken. And so let's face it, this inflation is what's causing the inflated housing construction costs, the inflated grocery bill, the inflated cost of living, and a very real pain by every American family who's deciding between an oil bill and a grocery bill these days. So really at the core of it, we have got to acknowledge, it's just like a pink elephant in the room that no one will acknowledge. The money is broken, therefore, and it's being debased with every new dollar that's printed by the Federal Reserve. Therefore, the cost of living is going parabolic. So unless we acknowledge and work on that, all of these local things are in vain.
So, I mean, I think that's a good segue into the other aspect of your business. What's your, I guess, the financial technology aspect of the Lux businesses? You're kind of moving into metals and individual sovereignty and some things that I find very interesting. But it's really a project that's aimed at protecting people from government money, protecting people from the consequences of having a monetary technology or a monetary system that's managed by politicians. And COVID, I think it just put on display the drawbacks of that, when you can have a government that over a mild flu pandemic that was released from a weapons lab in China, can all of a sudden we snap our fingers and everybody loses their mind and we print what, $4, $5, $6 trillion dollars, just a crazy amount of money. And then people saw the inflation happening, and I think it directly affected the price of housing, because for some reason people treat housing like it's their savings account as opposed to just a place where you live. And we saw a lot of that easy money flowing into the state of Maine to buy up housing on the coast, but housing anywhere really in the state of Maine. So talk to me a little bit about the, I guess, the financial products that you're looking to offer in the state of Maine, kind of post, the closure of your Bitcoin business, where you're rising like a phoenix in Westbrook.
Yeah, right, exactly. You bet. So, I mean, the number one thing that we advocate is just personal sovereignty, meaning take some responsibility for your own affairs. Don't always rely on outsourcing your health to your doctor, your finances to your financial advisor, your religion to your pastor. Take responsibility for some of these things, and in the case of finances, take self-custody of some of these things, which is even better, which you can do with metals and Bitcoin, and use them in productive ways. For example, all three metals that I have on the table here today, well, 2 metals and 1 Bitcoin, silver, gold, and Bitcoin are all at or near historic all-time highs. Meanwhile, the stock market is melting down due to a loss of confidence in federal government monetary and fiscal policy, geopolitical risks, tariffs, things that are utterly and completely out of control of the average person are melting down their 401ks. I mean, let's get real here. Take some responsibility. Allocate some of your wealth to something that is moving in the right direction. And the reason that these metals and Bitcoin are moving in the right direction is because they truly are an antidote to centrally planned, quote unquote, money. And they are things that have proven themselves to have real lasting value in the market, and therefore they are deflationary. So have a component of your portfolio be deflationary, meaning the value of that money goes up over time as opposed to down over time. It sounds so obvious, but you'd be surprised how many times I've said this, Steve, over last 8 years being in business, and it takes time. It's a deprogramming process for people to realize that that piece of fabric paper in my wallet is actually a promissory note. It is not money. And the more promissory notes are issued by the Federal Reserve, the less the ones out there in circulation are worth. And so therefore, why am I going to play that game? People are slow to realize that.
It's a hard concept for people to learn, I guess, in like a real physical sense when the dollar's inflating. Because from the entire time you grow up, all you know is the U.S. dollar. $1 or a quarter or whatever, that's your monetary standard that you're pegged to. So during COVID, when they're printing tons of money and it causes this explosion of money looking to go invest in the stock market, and your stock value, your stock portfolio is going up, you just look at the number on your phone and you're like, oh, wow. My stock portfolio is $100,000 higher, $200,000 higher. Like, I'm rich. Or in a different example, I knew a lot of people who were checking the Zillow listing of their houses.
Right.
So they see that the Zillow listing for their house from 2020 to 2022 has appreciated $150,000, and they're like, oh, that's great. Maybe we should sell and go buy a different, cheaper house. But it's because the money is broken, and people haven't put 2 and 2 together that, yes, the U.S. dollar might be higher, but the actual value of your wealth hasn't increased at all. And I think people have yet to determine, or it has yet to like seep into the broader consciousness. How do you determine value in an era when the dollar has been inflated so rapidly and is increasingly losing its ability to accurately match actual underlying value?
Yeah. Takes time for people to grasp that. Yeah. And so going back to what we're building here, the step one is getting people into these sovereign assets, gold, silver, and Bitcoin, allowing some maturation of value to occur so that you can start to build wealth and start to build collateral. So what we are seeing and what is already happening and what I'm already personally doing is I'm using these assets as the new collateral for loans. So step two is take the sovereign wealth instruments you've gotten into and pledge them as collateral for loans to buy everyday things, from an automobile to even a home if you've got enough value there, to purchasing a business. And our firm will be able to also offer those. We're in the process of building out that borrower-lender network, and there is a definite and clear path to do that. And we will be ready to do that in the not too distant future. In fact, many other firms already exist that are doing this. This is not totally innovative. For example, I've been able to hold on to some Bitcoin and use it as collateral and get that proceeds and buy a business with it, for example. And then the business produces cash flow and you pay off that loan over time. Meanwhile, you got to keep your Bitcoin, which has been appreciating in value all the while. So
and skip out on a capital gains tax that might come with a sale transaction.
Correct.
So I feel like they've been talking about Bitcoin-backed loans for a long time, maybe since 2017. BlockFi did some version of this.
Right.
It ended poorly. What are the limitations right now faced with loans collateralized by both metals and Bitcoin?
Sure. Yeah, it's a nascent marketplace, so there's just not a lot of depth of lenders. So I met with all of the Bitcoin-backed lenders at Bitcoin Nashville last summer, and I got comfortable with two or three of them, and so I'm personally using them. So this is how I operate. I take my own medicine before I suggest it to anybody else. So yeah, I'm using those. I mean, some of the drawbacks due to the thin marketplace of not many lenders are the interest rates are relatively high. They're often 10 or even 12% APR interest rates on these loans, which people say, oh my God, that's a lot of money. I can go to my credit union and get a car loan for 6% or something like that. But this is a temporary, situation. As more lenders come into the marketplace, it becomes competitive. So that's one downfall. Another one is just it takes time. If I sell you some Bitcoin today, it may take 2 or 3 or 4 years before it is appreciated in value enough to where it's a substantial amount of collateral that you can use for something. And so there's a little bit of time lag involved. And then in the case of using gold as a borrowing collateral, there's some risk there in that gold is still heavily manipulated through the paper markets. And so we're on an all-time high bull run right now. Gold is at 34.25 and climbing today. But I guess both with gold, silver, and Bitcoin, what's happened is the derivatives markets, the Wall Street goons have really found ways to manipulate those markets. There are no free markets, including those three, unfortunately. So another downside is don't get over the front of your skis with taking out a loan, and then the value of your collateral goes down to the point where there's a margin call.
Yeah, you don't want to be forced into selling your underlying asset. That's never a good situation. What's on the paper Bitcoin, paper gold aspect? I think a lot of people feel safer just going into their Fidelity app or Robinhood or whatever and buying a BlackRock ETF product. Right. And we've seen the evidence of that is the amount of money flowing into these ETFs is huge. I mean, there's going to be 10 or 15 different ETFs that offer exposure to Bitcoin price action. But as you've seen hundreds of billions of dollars flow into these ETFs, the price of Bitcoin hasn't moved in the way that you would expect it to. If you would have told me back when the ETFs released that this much money would be sitting in Bitcoin ETFs, I'd be like, well, geez, the price is going to be around $150,000, $175,000 a coin, right? And yet you haven't seen that. So is there a risk that the same practices with gold, a finite physical asset with lots of price manipulation, lots of paper Bitcoin, paper gold, have those practices moved over to Bitcoin, and what should we infer from that about the long-term success of decentralized currency?
So I guess the bad news is yes, they are, because there are paper derivatives attached to silver, gold, and Bitcoin now through Wall Street. I call them I call them like perverse products, frankly. Because that exists, yes, they're subject to heavy market manipulation. Now, on the flip side, though, the manipulation can really only persist when demand levels are kind of temperate. When there is a large surge in demand, like for example gold right now, central banks are around the world, Russia, China, US, are buying gold by the ton. By the thousands of tons actually, and so that demand level has outstripped any kind of market manipulation that can be accomplished through Wall Street stuff with their short selling and such, to the point where, yeah, we are reaching all-time highs on those metals and that Bitcoin. So that's very powerful. However, you know, knowing the playbook of what really the government and Wall Street wants, they want to be able to, quote unquote, control the pricing action of these things so that it doesn't appear too favorable to too many people. But you know, I don't think you can contain the, by the time you have companies, like I said with gold, in the case of gold, thousands of tons being purchased by central banks. And then when you flip over to Bitcoin, literally tens of thousands of Bitcoins worth tens or even hundreds of billions of dollars being purchased at a whack from corporations at this point, not the least of which is Strategy.
MicroStrategy, yeah.
Holy moly, he's got 500,000 Bitcoins, and now there's all kinds of Me Too action going on. It's like, wow, I'm gonna float a bond for 2% and go buy $40 million of Bitcoin for my firm too. Me too, me too. And so by the time that occurs, your demand levels are outstripping what can be you know, smothered with short selling.
So I guess you're saying that the phenomenon of Bitcoin, of gold, the demand is so high that the paper manipulation, I guess, will be insignificant long term.
I believe so, and that is a subjective call. But yeah, one would certainly hope. I mean, yeah, the story of gold manipulation has been really something, and it's been persistent since the 70s. And so we can only hope that the Bitcoin is not smothered for some long period of time through an ever-increasing, you know, paper shorting route.
Well, we talked about this a little bit before we turned the cameras on, but there was a period where Elon was talking about doing a live video tour of Fort Knox, where
oh yeah,
supposedly the United States just has a whole bunch of gold. But no one's ever, I guess it hasn't been audited since the 70s, so we don't really have a ton of proof that the gold's there. But Elon was talking about it, Trump was talking about it, doing a live streaming tour of Fort Knox, and then all of a sudden they just stopped.
It is weird. It just
kind of dropped off.
Yeah, it went away.
It's not like Elon to do anything like that. We just all of a sudden stopped talking about it.
Yeah. Okay, there's that. Okay, and then I'll point out one other thing too. In the latest, there was a Bitcoin legislation bill passed at the Senate Finance Committee level in the federal government, and like the last paragraph of it actually was unrelated to Bitcoin or crypto at all. It was a paragraph related to giving the U.S. Treasury the authority to mark to market the gold that we have on reserve. Because currently, I don't know if you remember this, but in FDR era, gold was marked at about $42 per ounce, and that's what it's been held on the books by the federal government for ever since. So if we were, somebody did the quick math and said, okay, if we were to mark to market the amount of gold that we think the U.S. government has, because nobody's audited Fort Knox or wherever in 50 years, but if we marked it up from $42 to $3,400 per ounce, we'd have $2 trillion of gold in our coffers here, and
which is not the whole national debt, but it's a good bite out of it. It gives us a much stronger hand, I would say.
Yeah, so there's that, and yeah, I don't know with the gold audit. It's such a controlled thing. I don't think it was ever located there. I think it was just always distributed across different sites, and it is odd though that just evaporated off of the news media cycle.
Yeah, and people just don't seem to be asking questions about it. I know the Trump people and the Elon people seem so happy with some of the progress that they're making. They've forgotten that the underlying problems, I think, still persist in many ways. So the other aspect of what you're doing, you mentioned this the sovereignty aspect of it, and we talked a little bit about how you've shifted your thinking in terms of corporate structure to, I guess, minimize your exposure to the laws of both the state of Maine, but also the federal government. So what have you done with your business that is, I guess, unique to, say, somebody who just goes out and creates an LLC and decides this is going to be a property management firm, or this is going to be a firm that offers consulting advice on how to custody your Bitcoin or your gold or something like that?
Yeah, you bet. Okay, it's a very large discussion, but I'll try to just give a tip of the iceberg type description here, Steve. So you can choose, everybody has the choice to choose what legal jurisdiction you operate in. So most people would say, what on earth are you talking about? We're in the United States.
Yeah, I'm located in Maine.
I'm in Maine.
I've got to go to Secretary Shenna Bellows, and I've got to give her my $100 to
get my
form an
LLC, and then I want to cut hair, so I got to go to Shenna Bellows again and ask for a license to cut your hair. And then after that, I got to go get another license that allows me to operate my cash register in the way. So that's a choice. You don't have to do that. So you can choose to operate in a different legal jurisdiction. Common law and equity is one that is available that I happen to really like, and it's afforded to us under the Constitution, where you can say, all right, I'm not interested in a state-sponsored LLC. Instead, under the auspices of common law and equity, I'm going to use an irrevocable trust as my business holding entity. I'm going to put a normal business into that entity, get the normal bank accounts, get the normal tax forms, do the normal stuff. But the magic of it is that trust is not construed under the laws of the state of Maine or under any federal laws. And so you are not subject to the same regulations that a person who has stepped into an LLC is subject to.
So how do you get that process started?
Yeah. That is one thing that our firms offer.
Let's say the main wire right now, we want to structure ownership in an irrevocable trust, and we want to start a Bitcoin reserve. A portion,
here we go.
A portion of our advertising and our subscription money we want to start piling into Bitcoin to keep us protected long term.
Talking my language, yeah. And this is nothing new. I'll just back up and then I'll answer your question. This is nothing new. The ruling elite families have been using these CL irrevocable trusts forever. I mean, the Johnson family, the Warburgs, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, all major corporations are statutory entities, but the shareholder structure underneath is often one of these irrevocable trusts.
And you hear them on the radio all the time. I mean, I used to, I worked in AM, conservative radio, and you would hear the financial advisors talking about creating irrevocable trusts.
Yeah.
So they are something that, I guess, for a different purpose, are available for people looking to, escape Medicaid clawback when they go into a nursing home or something. When the kids want the inheritance and they don't want the state coming in and clawing back what they've earned throughout their lives. So people will have heard, I think, maybe about irrevocable trusts, but not in this sense.
In this law jurisdiction. Yeah, the ones you're describing are state-sponsored business trusts, and so again, that trust derives its powers from the statutes of the state of Maine, and I'm not interested in that. I mean, there's lots of people who are, but I'm interested in the constitutional right to go the common law direction. Let's see, what was your question? Oh, how would you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I guess, where do you start with the corporate structure? I mean, is this just any random attorney? Is this somebody you have to walk them through this? How do you begin at that point?
Admittedly, it's not particularly easy. There's a very thin pool of service providers who understand this space and can offer this, a very thin pool. And so, for example, my attorney is in California, and he's one of like 2 guys that I can even name in the entire country who can help you set something like this up. And then my accounting firm is located in Arizona. Again, there's one of 2 or possibly 3 accounting firms that serve and do tax returns for these types of entities. So very thin pool. I would say get some basic education yourself, and then after you feel like you have half a clue, contact one of these service providers and get spun up with appropriate documentation. The beauty of it is it's relatively low cost. I mean, you're dealing with contracts, really. It's an irrevocable trust is a contract between a grantor who gives some money to a trustee on behalf of the beneficiaries, which are often our children, for example. Mm-hmm. So it's a very spiritual thing too. I mean, it's said that God is a grantor who gives to a father, and the beneficiary is the sons. And so it's a very spiritual thing, these trusts, and they go back to Roman times, actually, when women couldn't own property. So, for example, when a woman was widowed in ancient Rome, the husband's assets would go into a trust that would be held for the benefit of her and her children. And so these things are very ancient instruments. Our founding fathers coded it right into the Constitution. Article 1, Section 10, the contract clause, it's right there. You can contract with anyone at any time, and including between a grantor and a trustee. Set one of these trusts up, get yourself banking, and boom, you've created a jurisdiction that somebody, like for example, somebody at the who provides licensing with the state of Maine is going to say, no, you got to come to me for a license to operate your business. And you say, well, are we in contract together? Do I have some type of an instrument or contract with you such that you would have jurisdiction over my business that's located in this common law irrevocable trust? And they'll say, well, no, we are not. And so, or you can compel them to say that because that's the truth. So there's a real good reason to do it, and that's to keep your affairs private. And we are afforded that right by the Fourth Amendment, and I really like invoking and using it. And we're owning some very substantial businesses inside these instruments, and it's a very effective tool. You do have to run them properly. You got to have trustees meetings. You got to have books. You got to do things properly internally, so that the trust is recognized. If ever challenged, it's recognized as a valid and bona fide irrevocable trust.
So who would challenge it?
Often just mostly a beneficiary. Like a beneficiary says, hey, I haven't gotten any payouts in 10 years. And they may file a legal complaint in a statutory court, which would be wrong because the statutory court doesn't have jurisdiction over, you have to go to an equity court. So there's some cases too where a regulator might say, well, no, I don't care what you're saying to me. I have jurisdiction over your business. You're a money service provider, and you're going to come in and you're going to register with me. And we're going to say, well, I understand that you feel that way because that's what you're just doing your job. You're supposed to regulate money transmission in the state of Maine. Good job, you're doing a good job. However, the reasons you don't have jurisdiction over this business are as follows, and you just calmly explain all of the reasons why it's out of their jurisdiction.
So are you aware of any other businesses in the state of Maine that are operating under a similar structure?
Not in the state of Maine. However, I'm very plugged into this sovereign community nationally, and many people are plugged into this. And the trust is one way to do it. In ecclesiastic, you can have a ministry. If you have a sincerely held belief about something, you can actually start a ministry, and that religious right to do that is also protected with very, very limited ability for regulators or tax authorities and others to step inside of a ecclesiastic entity. So there's a very vibrant community nationally of people who are doing this, and I'm plugged into them. We're trading notes. I would just say this, it's bursting wide open. Like people are realizing that you don't have to do this. It's a choice. You can choose how to operate your business and in what jurisdiction.
So I hear this and think, that's awesome. I want to do that. How do I follow Daren's lead? I think probably critics or people who are fans of the way the system's been going hear that, oh, it's just a scam to avoid paying taxes or subvert regulations, or you just want to, take advantage of people or something. I guess so. What is, what is the response to people who would be critical of something like this? And you certainly seem to be a pioneer, like you were a pioneer of Bitcoin businesses in Maine. Here you are as a pioneer of this sovereignty issue here in the state. And sometimes it doesn't work out so well for pioneers. They can have targets on their backs.
Targets on, but you're absolutely right. If you were to Google this, it would be you would immediately, the number one hit would be the sanctioned Newspeak website, which is Wikipedia, which would say that this, you are speaking of the sovereign citizen movement, a misguided and illegal movement where people want to avoid taxation, think that they can operate. So that's the Wikipedia's answer. The real answer is I can give you dozens, if not hundreds, of actual case laws at the local, regional, and Supreme Court level that uphold the right to operate entities in this way. And I always cite them whenever I'm dealing in starting a new business in this realm. And we create like a footnote of everything that we're leaning on as far as case law. And it's a very robust body of case law. So despite what the mainstream narrative or web search results will suggest, it's very, very legitimate.
So I guess what are the advantages of doing something like this? If you've you've got to go through the headache of finding somebody a lawyer in California, an accounting firm in another state to pull this together. But what advantages do you get? Say somebody just like they own a car wash somewhere in Maine. What advantages would accrue to them for organizing in such a way?
Yeah, it's a great question. The number one thing that I like is just sovereignty. You are not beholden to report to anybody. You are not deriving your rights to operate your car wash from Shenna Bellows or Janet Mills, nor do you have to report to them on an annual basis with the status, performance, and updates to your business, which is what people that have an LLC must do, which is actually derogatory if you ask me. And the more I get into the space, I realize that that's tantamount to being a serf genuflecting before a king asking for permission to farm their own fields. So that's the number one thing. You don't have to report to anybody. Number two, if you are a morally upright person and you feel like you can operate a business ethically and morally, and you don't need a regulator breathing down your neck, for example, the mortgage industry is heavily regulated, the money business, many businesses are heavily regulated. I
mean, you mentioned it earlier, haircutting, professional licensing.
Yeah.
And the pool of individuals who have to get a professional license from a state office here is big. And it's big. They're trying to grow it. They actually want general contractors now to become licensed professionals. So,
but if you feel that you're a grown adult and you don't require that level of oversight and regulation, you don't need to do that. It's a choice. Once again, you can opt in or not. And thirdly, I mean, it's just the tax efficiency is substantial. So I won't get into any of the details here today, but just the way that these are operated is in a way that's extremely efficient. You're not subject to statutes regarding, I can only deduct 50% of clothing. I can't deduct travel unless it was specifically for a client. All of these stipulations about deductions are actually not applicable. You have turned toward common law, which doesn't have any such regs. So so those are really the three big benefits. This isn't for everybody, Steve. So it really takes a person who has a little bit of emotional maturity, a little bit of cognition about their own morality, and has a really good handle on self-responsibility. This isn't for everybody. I think we'd still need that statutory system out there for the masses, to be honest. I don't think everybody's going to be cut out to be their own compass in this way.
Well, I also think you'd need a certain level of risk profile, especially to be the first one to really do this and to do it in a public way.
Yeah.
Because you would certainly put a target on your back to be saying like, nope, I'm breaking with the pack. I'm going to do my company like this. I can attend to my affairs, and no, your statutes don't apply to me. So I can see that having to be a legal fight.
Yeah.
Especially if you are somebody who has other opinions that countervail the consensus wisdom in a town like Augusta or Portland.
Well, and the examples we've given so far too are kind of optional, but like, let's get down to brass tacks. Like, I think one of the most important ones is food. So right now, like, the USDA has a stranglehold on pretty much all food production. And so there's a famous case in Pennsylvania where Amos Miller, the Amish man, whose family has been producing meat, cheese, eggs for hundreds of years, was raided by the FBI for having no licenses to do so. This is preposterous. The man was doing nothing wrong. He had a sincerely held religious belief that he wanted to provide food for himself and his community, and he had no obligation to have statutory permission to do so, yet the feds construed that they had that, and the poor man at the moment didn't have the legal or other resources to realize that he could defend himself. He's since hired the same attorney I've hired to set up a common law irrevocable trust to cloister and protect his business moving forward. But I mean, food production, it's huge. In Maine, it's a problem too. I mean, we want to be able to, my rancher is in Durham, Maine. I want to be able to go to my rancher and buy a cut of meat without having to wait for a USDA inspection. And they say, well, you didn't feed those animals enough growth hormones and COVID mRNA vaccines, so you can't sell that meat. And that's literally what's happening. So like mRNA and other animal treatments are sweeping through salmon, pork, and beef right now. So if you do not want to eat mRNA, salmon, pork, and beef, you got to go to a local rancher. And if you go to a local rancher, you got to do it in a way that's not governed by the USDA, or else you're going to have those ingredients in it. So that's a very important one and a very good use case for these actually. Yeah.
So on the issue of food and food sovereignty, it makes me think of this guy who lives in Mercer, Scott Greeny. He had, right before Thanksgiving, he had someone from the Department of Agriculture, state bureaucracy, tell him that he had to destroy some 300 of his turkeys right before Thanksgiving. I'm not personally in the turkey business, but I feel like right before Thanksgiving is probably your best season, probably the worst time to have the state to come and tell you you have to destroy 300 of your turkeys. And I know from talking with him that he's since had his turkeys sent off to federally certified labs and tested. They're fine. There's no issue with them.
Same thing with...
There's no issue with them except for the opinion of some scientist who works in the government.
And they were proven to be incorrect when the laboratory tested. Just like with Joel Salatin with the lunatic farmer. I don't know if you saw that movie recently, but yeah.
I'm familiar with Joel, but I'm not familiar with
lunatic back in farmer. The day, he was, I forgot, he was producing poultry, and he didn't have whatever correct licensure or whatever that the feds wanted, and they accused him. They came to his farm one day, said, "Shut down everything, kill your birds, because you haven't met the standard for cleanliness of a poultry producing factory." He said, "Whoa, wait just a minute. How are you measuring your?" And he drilled them and drilled them and drilled them, and they got to the point where they actually did a scientific, testing of his poultry, and it was proven to be like 5 times cleaner than factory-produced poultry, where they're spraying a bleach solution over the carcasses and such. He wasn't needing to do that because his poultry was already sanitary. So, this is just a long-standing pattern of. It's a perverse need for control over every aspect of our lives, including food, and that's not a good thing right now. That's food sovereignty is probably the top one. Actually, I kind of want to spend time in that space, but honestly, with the direction of Freedom River Club here, we've taken the direction of financial sovereignty.
Okay, so I guess the service that you would make available to people in Maine or New England customers, whoever your customer base is protection from the whims of this overweening state and federal government.
Yes. Get you set up in the correct jurisdiction, get you some sovereign money, let it build up value, get you some sovereign finance, business, vehicle, and auto loans. Have a sovereign marketplace. Imagine popping onto an app that was not dissimilar to Facebook Marketplace and knowing that you're in good company with other sovereigns who are selling things, and so they generally are aligned with your values. And then finally, imagine this is stage 5 of Freedom River, imagine having an entire ecosystem of a sovereign economy where you don't necessarily have to deal with the statutory system. You can go to your local farmers for food, you can go to your local finance firm for private finance, you can go to your neighbors for other items, and it's a whole ecosystem that is separate and apart from the statutory system.
Okay, so say I'm somebody who I've seen this podcast episode, I become intrigued by these ideas, and I come to you and I say, I've got some cash savings, some gold, some Bitcoin, but I'm intrigued by these ideas. Where do I start? What do I do?
Yeah, great.
So what does the elevator pitch look like?
Yeah. Well, there's a number of clubs that have popped up in the last 2 years that are doing what we're doing here. Within our case, Freedom River Club, you can sign our membership agreement. When you enter the club, you're entering in a different capacity. You're entering in the capacity of a living man, not a creature of the law as the government would have you. Like, for example, when you sign a driver's license or a passport or a loan document, you're signing as a creature of the law.
Do I need my vaccine card to sign up for that?
Seriously. I know.
Does the Freedom River Club have vaccine mandates?
Yeah. That's one great thing. Is this? There's no such thing as mandates, or certainly not vaccine passports or digital passports or any of the dystopian things that are still coming. Unfortunately, even with this administration, there's still going to be some of these nefarious things. But so yeah, sign our membership agreement. The cost to join is one pre-1933 silver ounce.
Why pre-1933?
The money sets the law for him. So pre-1933 was FDR's New Deal Act and the Gold Confiscation Act and all kinds of really nasty stuff that most people don't realize. They remember him as a president who read them fireside stories when in fact he bankrupted the American family by stealing their gold and internalizing it to the U.S. Treasury. So yeah, pre-1933 silver. You're in the club. Now you can start coming to our meetups, obtaining access to our offerings like metals and other things, merchandise, loan opportunities, both being a lender and a borrower. And we just gotta cascade out from there. There's a whole rollout of things we're doing in the next 2 years.
And so when did you guys officially start?
Pretty recently. I think we just started this January 1st.
Okay, great.
Yeah. But there is really a thing sweeping the nation, Steve. So you can find any number of, there's a number of guys that I listen to podcasts that do this. There's the PMA team. There's several others who are helping people be free with their businesses, and
I mean, it's certainly something we'd like to do, but
yeah.
I guess I kind of veer back and forth between the optimistic vision of the future and then the pessimistic vision of the future. So on the one hand, you have these kind of new ideas about individual sovereignty, decentralized money, restoring people's sovereignty versus the dystopian vision of bigger and bigger, more centralized government, central bank digital currencies.
Yeah.
So your Bitcoin is attached with a carbon allowance, and your phone tells you, oh, sorry, you've had too much red meat, and it have exceeded your carbon allowance for red meat, so you're not allowed to buy this meat. Whereas there's like a freer, more happy version, I think, where you go to your local farmer and flip them a gold coin or a silver coin or maybe a little bit of Bitcoin, and you get a half a cow for your freezer.
You betcha.
So I think most people at their gut level, even if they don't understand the technology, would view that scenario as a happier one, but maybe they just don't have the intellectual or financial resources to get to that point or to help encourage something like that.
Well, or realize just how critical it is, until the day comes. Like, for example, central bank digital currencies. Remember, they were like spectacularly slapped down, and so everybody's like, hooray, we won. It's never going to happen. Wrong.
Yeah.
Stablecoins have become the new CBDCs.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a threat. Howard Lutnick is the Treasury Secretary now, and he is looking out for himself and his Wall Street cronies, and they will be using stablecoins, the one-to-one pegged cryptocurrencies.
And so we're talking about Tether, Circle.
And a whole host. In fact, they've streamlined the process of issuing your own stablecoin. So every bank will have its own stablecoin. Those will be completely and utterly controlled with KYC and risk measures. They will be completely traceable. They will be
that's know your customer, anti-money laundering. It's the government fingers.
Every movement, every time will be completely locked in. It will be used as a social control mechanism, just as the CBDCs were intended for. So.
In some ways, it already is, because Tether can centrally freeze someone's balance. If there's a transaction that is reported to law enforcement or something, they can freeze $1 billion. So it's not that big of a leap to see how that could be abused. I think the scales have fallen for people's eyes. COVID, I think, caused a lot of people to say, well, if government power can be wielded that capriciously and that aggressively for a mild flu pandemic, they can do it for any reason.
Yeah, and only some people, though, have opened their eyes to this. So, everybody's being boiled by like a frog right now, which is like, oh, okay, my bank has this new payment method that's really cool. Zelle has gone away, but look, there's this new one here, and I don't really care what the underlying technology is. I just know it's really easy for me to give Steve $25 for going out to dinner last night. Yeah. And meanwhile, they don't realize it's a stable coin that's tracked, traced, sliced, and diced, and they. You could be called into question at any moment for why you sent somebody money. So we need to be cognizant that these things are happening. It's inevitable. And so, decide, do you want to participate in that system, or do you want to have a leg in another system as well?
Do you think people have an inherent right to have all of their transactions be private, and why?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're a living man or woman, the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution is the right to privacy of person, place, and papers. Under no circumstances, except under the direct threat of a court-issued, subpoena, do you have to cough anything up. And so this should not be abused or usurped by anybody. And in fact, it already has been. And we've just become numb to the fact that the IRS can scan your bank account at its own whim, which is unthinkable. Unthinkable, but it's just been announced in the newspapers that that's part of the plan if they haven't already started it. So, privacy is not a privilege. It's a sovereign right, and we just got to get people educated that these are inalienable rights you are born with and granted from your creator, not granted from Janet Mills or Shanna Bellows, that you have to grovel for. So it just takes time. It's honestly taken me time to ascertain what all things I was given at birth versus what things I need to genuflect before Mills and Bellows for. So yeah.
So I guess the journey kind of starts, as you said, with more education about the irrevocable trusts, about decentralized money, that kind of thing. And is that part of what the Freedom River Club is doing? If someone can get the pre-1933 silver
right.
and get through the doors with a jacket on, they can start to learn more about what you're doing. So I guess promote the idea of membership in the Freedom River Club.
Yeah, so the Freedom River Club offers a lot of education. So we're in the middle of building out a whole knowledge base of written and eventually video content on learning about these basic concepts, your inalienable rights. What does it mean to be a sovereign? What is self-custody? These core concepts that just get people up to speed. These are available now to new members. Our meetups are invaluable. We're moving to more of a Q&A session with our meetups, such that you can come and be in the middle of your own research and just chime in with your questions. Often somebody from the audience will answer. We don't even have to have one of our reps answer. So there's the build out of the borrowing and lending network, which is the world's moving towards that anyway. Banks, ironically, are the least apt lenders these days.
In some way, it's an old school idea, right? I mean, we already have informal private lending happening in Maine. It's called Hawala. It's the money markets that the Somalis will use to move their money. Yeah, you go to a mosque in Portland and you give them $20,000 and they find a way to informally transmit it back home without using the existing financial system.
Yeah,
so I mean, it's an old idea.
Yeah,
the idea that you would engage in private lending outside of a regulated traditional financial system.
Yeah.
So in some ways, it's getting back to wisdom that we had
many hundreds
centuries
of years
ago.
Yeah, centuries ago. I agree. Yes. Yeah. And then there's all sorts of other things too, like we're going to be offering members an opportunity to, if you can't afford to buy a commercial real estate building, but you want to have exposure to the earnings and ownership of one, we can offer you a contract to be a co-owner of such a building, and you can do so with a smaller amount of money than it would take to buy the whole thing yourself. So different things like that, opportunities. It's really a whole burgeoning ecosystem that's a parallel economy. That's how I can best explain it.
Well, I mean, I can tell we've only scratched the surface of the topics that we can get into and should get into in future episodes, but have probably given people more than enough to chew on here. But Daren Hebold, the CEO and founder of the Lux Companies, I look forward to attending. It's the Freedom River Club at some point in time.
Please.
I think most of my silver though is post 1933, so I might have to put my nose to the ground to come up with some pre FDR tyranny money.
We'll sell you one if you can't for $29. So.
Well, I appreciate it, Daren. Thank you very much for coming in. We'll
Thanks
talk
a
again
lot.
soon.
Appreciate it.